Okay, so now let's take a look at, we know what communication climates are. How exactly do they develop? And before we dive into this, what I want you to do is when you're, think about either the two people that I asked you to write down, or the one person that you have the two different relationships with. And I want you to do the assessment on page 358. You're going to see if the message, the communication is confirming or disconfirming. Once you do the assessment, you're going to have to go to page 379 at the end of the chapter to figure out where you fall on this scale. But okay, so basically, what happens is if you see that other people like you, appreciate you, and respect you, you have a positive reaction, you feel valued, that's confirming communication. It becomes a cycle. If someone shows you that they like and respect you, you show them that you like and respect them, and the whole climate is more positive or sunny, and that's confirming communication. On the other hand, if you're getting the message, you don't matter, you're not important, you don't exist, that's disconfirming communication, and that shows a lack of regard. I want to call your attention to the second paragraph on page 355 that is talking about how important confirming messages are. Children who lack confirmation suffer a broad range of emotional and behavioral problems, whereas those who feel confirmed have more open communication with their parents, higher self-esteem, and lower levels of stress. Confirming communication by teachers has been shown to enhance in-class participation, particularly from students who are apprehensive about talking. A confirming climate is also important in marriage, where it is the best predictor of marital satisfaction. Marriage researcher John Gottman, who last chapter I talked about Gottman and his four horsemen. Actually, that was chapter 10. Gottman suggests that couples who have 5 times as many positive interactions as negative ones are likely to have happy and successful relationships. And if children see their parents regularly engage in confirming communication with each other, they are likely to replicate those patterns in their own romantic relationships. Something that's not in the textbook, there is a mathematician, Marcel Losada, who has worked with quite a bit with Barbara Fredrickson, who's a positive psychologist. And what he discovered was something that has come to be known as the Losada line, which is that in order to have a positive relationship, i.e. confirming communication, there need to be at least 3 times as many positive messages as negative or neutral messages. So think about this in the workplace. If, let's say, your boss is having a stressful day and says something to you that is very disconfirming, and then comes back and says, "Oh, I'm so sorry, blah, 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 I really think you're doing a great job," that's not enough. They have to also, your boss has to also let you know 2 more times that he or she thinks that you're doing a good job. So let's take a look at some of these confirming or disconfirming messages. On the bottom of page 356, there is a chart or a figure that looks at confirming messages, disagreeing messages, and disconfirming messages. And basically, confirming messages show that you are valued, all the way over to disconfirming messages, which show that you are not valued. Okay, so the chart is set up slightly differently than this. The most confirming message you can give is endorsement, and then we get to acknowledgement, and then recognition. That shows you the most value. But I'm going to take them in the order that they are in this chart. So basically, recognition just indicates that you are aware that the other person is there. eye contact is one. Think about times that you have denied someone eye contact. You're like, I'm not going to look at them. That was obviously very disconfirming. Also, if somebody texts you, you need to do something with that message, whether you click on, I don't know, haha, or, that you love it, or that you think it's horrible, whatever it is, that is a way to recognize that the other person exists. A step up, a little bit more valuing, is acknowledgement, where you are paying attention to the ideas and the feelings of other people. So you're listening and you're nodding. That's acknowledgement. Or you're saying, I see why you're upset. There's a French philosopher, Simone Weil, who says, attention is the rarest and purest form of generosity. There's a text box on, I think, the previous page. Maybe it's coming up. 359, that talks about phubbing or phone snubbing. That says, if you are with someone, they were looking mostly at, I think, spouses, and the person looks at their phone frequently, that is a way of lack of acknowledgement that the other person is there. And it said the study was done with adults. I don't know the age. I know that I hate it when that happens. I feel very disconfirmed when people do that to me. And I would, of course, never do that to other people. All right, the highest way that you can show someone that you value them is by indicating that you agree with them or that you support them. There used to be a show on TV, The Tonight Show, with Johnny Carson, and his second banana, oh gosh, I just went blank on his name. Jim McMahon basically used to say all the time, "You're right, sir." That's endorsement. Or saying to someone, "I understand why you're so stressed." So these are messages that confirm. What about messages that are kind of in the middle, where you're not confirming, but you're not disconfirming? And basically, we've got argumentativeness and complaining. So at argumentativeness, we're not talking about picking a fight. We're saying you're presenting a position, you're defending a position because you are opposing the position taken by others. Perhaps your family was arguing about the coronavirus. I read a journal about that. Okay, that's argumentativeness. You're not disconfirming the other person, because since you are arguing against their ideas, you're at least acknowledging that they exist. You're just telling them that you're not a fan of their ideas. Okay. There's a difference between saying to someone, "I disagree, let me explain why," and saying, "Well, your ideas are stupid." So you can disagree in a more confirming way or a more disconfirming way. Complaining is another disagreeing message where you're expressing dissatisfaction. To be more confirming, you make it a behavioral complaint. You left your shoes in the middle of the floor again, and I tripped over them. Okay, it's a behavior. As opposed to a personal complaint, "You're such a slob." The first one is more confirming. The second one is more disconfirming. Now, the last two, the disconfirming messages, are aggressiveness and ostracism. Aggressiveness is attacking the self-concept of others to inflict pain and to demean the worth of others. Okay? For example, "You're so stupid, I knew you couldn't do even the simplest thing." Okay? That's verbal aggressiveness. Obviously, there's also more physical aggressiveness. Of course, a fairly, it's not new, but it's gotten a lot more play in the news. Bullying, whether it's face-to-face bullying or cyberbullying, is a form of disconfirming messages. And the last one is ostracism, where you ignore the other. You refuse to make eye contact. You're giving them the silent treatment. You're stonewalling them. Remember what Gottman said about stonewalling a little while ago. Or online, you are ghosting. Okay, so when you think about these two people with whom you have a different communication climate, are you seeing that the one where you have the warmer relationship, you have more confirming messages, and the one where things are challenging, you have more disconfirming messages? And I'm curious, where do disagreeing messages fit in there? So, anyways, that's something to think about. Now, the last point in this section on how they confirm how communication climates develop, we have the topic of defensiveness. And how come there we go. All right. So basically, if you're hearing a lot of disconfirming messages and even some disagreeing messages, you are going to feel defensive. So, if someone comes up to you and is ready to throw a punch, your hands go up. So you're going to block it. So what we're talking about is not someone who is physically threatening you, but they are threatening your face, your sense of self. If you remember, we talked about this back in chapter 3, the self that you are trying to present to the world. So what happens when someone is threatening you in terms of communication, or in terms of your sense of self? We get defensive. And if you remember, keep referring back to Gottman, defensiveness is one of the 4 horsemen. And not to say that the minute you get defensive, that's it, the relationship is over. But if you notice that defensiveness is a big component of a relationship, then there's a problem. So let's see. Each of us have different topics that make us defensive. It's interesting. Sometimes we get defensive when we are accused of things that we didn't do. Somebody says to you, "You're so lazy," and you know that you worked hard on something, and so you get very defensive. Other times we get defensive when we know that criticism is actually justified. Oh, you didn't even do a good job. You're so lazy, and you realize that you kind of did not put in the work that needed, so you get defensive. Also, we get more or less defensive based on who said something that we found defense arousing. I mean, someone you don't really know says something to you, you're probably like, what do they know? Someone that you know and respect a lot says something that threatens your face, ooh, then you're probably going to become more defensive. So it's important to realize that defensiveness is interactive. It takes 2 to create this kind of defensive climate. So it would be helpful if we as communicators learned how to communicate in a way that reduces defensiveness in other people. Okay, remember that whole transactional model of communication? That sounds wrong to me. The Stewie Griffin model. There are 2 people who are involved. And they gave an example I thought was really interesting about Sarah Tracy, who analyzed emergency call center interactions. And she found that callers became defensive when someone would say, tell me if such and such is happening. And the person would get defensive. And probably because they're stressed already. And what they found was if the operator were to say, can you tell me if, then the person felt less threatened. They were less defensive. So the third. So the next section that we talk about is all about how to move from defense arousing climates to more supportive climates. All right, so enjoy your break. I'm having problems.